morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, the news broke late yesterday morning, almost at noon. Apparently now it is still very, very tentative, but it appears by all reports that there is now a tentative ceasefire that has been agreed to by both Hamas and Israel. And if it is implemented, if this thing can hold, it may at least temporarily end the war between Israel and Hamas and the carnage and the devastation in Gaza. So here is exactly now what is being reported. After months and months of intense negotiations, there is a ceasefire deal that Israeli, Palestinian, American, Egyptian, I swear to you, Qatari negotiators reached. So this had a lot of moving parts and a lot of mediators and a lot of players. And in essence, it is a two-phase deal. The first phase is in exchange for Israel to get 33 hostages. Now remember, Hamas holds 98 hostages that we know of. 33 of them will be released within the next couple of weeks. 23 of them are believed to be alive. 10 are dead. In exchange for these 33 hostages, Israel has agreed to release over 1,000 Palestinian prisoners, many of them Palestinian Hamas jihadists and terrorists, hundreds of them, I'm not kidding, convicted life in prison for murder. So these are very dangerous terrorists that Israel is going to return to the Palestinians or to Hamas in exchange for the hostages. Furthermore, Israel has agreed to a tentative ceasefire that will go on for at least several months, and they will pull out of most of Gaza, almost all of Gaza, with the exception of a buffer in the north and a buffer in the east. So outside of this, Israel has to pull out of most of Gaza, and the war effectively against Hamas ends. It's temporary. It's not a permanent end to the war, but it is a temporary end to the war. Now, it is a steep price that Israel is paying. If you want my brutally honest opinion, and again, it's up to Israel, it's up to the Israelis, it's up to the Israeli government of Prime Minister Netanyahu. I think it's too much of a price. I'll be honest with you. I think Israel gets little. I know these lives are very valuable. I don't want to downplay it. But man, oh man, I mean, this, basically Hamas survives, at least for now. They're not uprooted. They're not permanently defeated. Israel pulls out of much of Gaza, and they're going to get at least 1,000 terrorists back who are going to kill many more innocent civilians down the line. So, to me, I think it's a bad deal, but it doesn't matter. It's up to the Israeli government. They're willing to pay that price, and the Israeli public, which according to opinion polls, about 60% support this deal. So, it is up to Israel. The fact of the matter is, we have a deal. Now, that is phase one. Phase two, there are two phases to the deal. The second phase, and that's going to be the most crucial phase, is once they release the prisoners, the terrorists, in exchange for these 33 hostages, Israel begins to withdraw, and there is some kind of peace and ceasefire that takes hold. Then negotiations will go on to a second stage, whereby the rest of the hostages will then be, about 65 of them, will then be released. In exchange for the rest of the hostages, Israel will completely pull out of Gaza, and they will then begin the rebuilding of the Gaza Strip, with the UN coming in, providing a lot of the aid and financial assistance and building material. In other words, then, we start to see the beginning of a post-war society and government take a Palestinian government take root in Gaza. That is the second phase, if we get to the second phase. Now, already, just the fact that the possibility of this 15-month war is coming to an end, that it's now, there's going to be some kind of peace, fragile however it is, has really bolstered a lot of people, both on the Israeli and the Palestinian side. Palestinians were openly singing, dancing on the streets of Gaza and the West Bank. Israelis, especially the family members of the hostages, understandably, were celebrating, praying, and hoping that the deal is finally implemented. The key factor, the game changer, in my view, and in the view in private of Benjamin Netanyahu and of his entire negotiating team, is that of Donald J. Trump. Donald J. Trump, if you remember, after he won the election, both on Truth Social and publicly, warned Hamas in a way that Joe Biden never was able to do because Biden was too weak, too feckless, too ineffective. That the days of appeasing Iran, the days of appeasing Hamas, the days of appeasing Islamic jihadists are over. And as Trump famously said, a la Ronald Reagan 2.0, if the hostages are not returned by the day I'm inaugurated, quote unquote, all hell will break loose. And that was a clear warning to Hamas that if you don't come up with a ceasefire and I don't start seeing hostages being released, I, the United States, will project overwhelming power and we will wipe you off the face of the earth. And the person that helped lead the negotiations was Trump's own Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, who played a pivotal role in putting together this ceasefire deal and in getting some of the hostages released. But Joe Biden wants to take credit. Listen now to Joey saying, we have a deal, and guess what? I'm the guy who made it happen. Roll cut one, Mike.
Good afternoon. It's a very good afternoon. Because at long last, I can announce a ceasefire and a hostage deal has been reached between Israel and Hamas. For more than 15 months of conflict that began with Hezbollah's brutal massacre on October the 7th, more than 15 months of terror for the hostages, their families, the Israeli people, more than 15 months of suffering by the innocent people of Gaza. Fighting in Gaza will stop, and soon the hostages will return home to their families.
And then he continued saying, we have a ceasefire deal, and guess what? The contours of which I laid out all the way back in May. In other words, I'm the father of peace. I'm the father of this deal. Roll cut 1A, Mike.
The elements of this deal were what I laid out in detail this past May, which was embraced by countries around the world and endorsed overwhelmingly by the UN Security Council. The deal is structured in 3 phases. Phase 1 will last 6 weeks. It includes a full and complete ceasefire, withdrawal of Israeli forces from all the populated areas of Gaza, and the release of a number of hostages held by Hamas, including women and elderly and the wounded. And I'm proud to say Americans will be part of that hostage release in phase 1 as well.
Okay, I'm very happy Americans are going to be coming home. Believe me. To me, I don't want to rest until every single hostage is released, and especially every single American is released. But my friends, who are we kidding? Seriously. So what changed? Biden's been asking for a deal since May of last year. What changed? What changed was November. What changed was the election. What changed was Donald Trump throwing down the gauntlet, where he openly said, all hell will break loose. There will be hell to pay, as he put it, unless the hostages are returned. And unless there's a ceasefire. Now, the Israelis got the message. More importantly, Hamas and the Palestinians got the message. He was the game changer. He was the decisive change agent. It was his threat and his credibility that made this deal happen. Or else they would continue negotiating endlessly and endlessly and endlessly as they have for the last 8 to 9 months. Just like Reagan, when on his first day when he was inaugurated, the Iranian hostages came back home. Donald Trump becomes Reagan 2.0. An incredible victory for America. 620 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, a couple lines are still open if you want to jump on. Ceasefire deal, if it holds, and that's a big if, will be an historic achievement. It will end 15 months of fighting. Some of the bloodiest fighting we have seen in the Middle East in a very, very long time. Now, to me, there is absolutely no question who deserves primary, if you want to say credit, but I prefer who is primarily responsible, who was the decisive X factor in getting the two parties to hammer out a deal. And I think it's no question. It was Donald Trump. It was his victory in November. But more than that, peace through strength. The projection of American power. And it is a beautiful thing to watch. And Trump did it multiple times, but here it is. This was at a press conference, and he was letting Hamas know, I am not Joe Biden. I am not an appeaser. I am not going to allow you make a mockery of America or American hostages or of American power. Those days are over. Roll cut 5B, Mike.
All hell will break out. If those hostages aren't back, I don't want to hurt your negotiation. If they're not back by the time I get into office, all hell will break out in the Middle East. And it will not be good for Hamas, and it will not be good, frankly, for anyone. All hell will break out. I don't have to say anymore, but that's what it is. And they should have given them back a long time. They should have never taken them. There should have never been the attack of October 7th. People forget that. But there was. And many people are killed. They're no longer hostages.
That was, by the way, to an Israeli reporter. He was taking questions from a lot of reporters, but this was just, 6 weeks ago. And he was an ultimatum. And he said, look, I said it in writing on Truth Social. I'm going to say it publicly at a press conference. If Hamas knows what's good for them, you better release those hostages. Now, to me, there's no question. Hamas got the message. Just like the mullahs, the ayatollahs in Iran got the message at the end of Carter's presidency when Reagan won. When Reagan famously said Tehran would look like a beautiful parking lot. And basically he was saying, we're going to bomb you to the Stone Age. I want the hostages, the American hostages held in Iran under Carter, who stood there pathetically for over a year, wringing his hands, just a pitiful, honestly, it was a pitiful performance on his part, a weakling, an appeaser. And Reagan said, listen, that's not going to fly with me. I'm not Jimmy. And if you guys in Iran and in Tehran, if you guys know what's good for you, you want your 72 virgins, I'll send you all up there for your 72 virgins. You want to die for Allah? That's no problem. I can handle that. I can make that happen for you. And boom, the first day, literally the day Reagan was inaugurated, all of the American hostages came home. And that signaled that American strength was back, American pride was back, and American power was back. And to me, this is exactly now what's happening with this deal. Whatever you think of the deal itself, and look, I'm going to say it again. If I was in the Israeli cabinet, personally, as an Israeli, I'm not talking now as a family member of a hostage. A family member of a hostage, hey, I want my loved one home, and we'll deal with the future when it comes. But if I'm sitting in the Israeli cabinet, I wouldn't vote for this deal because I think it gives Hamas too much. But that's for Bibi. That's for the Israelis. That's their business. But what I care about as an American is that I can see now the decisive effect that that President Trump or President-elect Trump is already having, and he hasn't even been sworn in yet. And he's already making the world a much better place. He's already having massive influence. Now, listen to Joe Biden. This is unbelievable. He's trying to, so this is Reagan 2.0. That's what we're seeing right now. Trump now, this is Reagan 2.0. And look at Joey. He's trying to claim credit as if he had any role in this. Roll cut 3, Mike.
This is the ceasefire agreement I introduced last spring. Today, Hamas and Israel have agreed to that ceasefire agreement and the whole ending the war. You know, those of you who have followed the negotiations can attest, the road to this deal has not been easy. I've worked in foreign policy for decades.
Yeah.
This is one of the toughest negotiations I've ever experienced. And we reached this point because of the pressure that Israel built on Hamas, backed by the United States.
Unbelievable. What negotiations were you involved in? You didn't negotiate a thing. You've been sleeping for the last year. What are you talking about? You did not. In fact, the lead negotiator in Qatar, which is where they cut this deal, was Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff. He's the guy that led the entire American delegation and basically was cracking heads, especially on the Hamas side. So here's the guy. You've been pushing for peace for this deal now since May. What changed? What changed? Even in private, Netanyahu is saying what got Hamas to move was the threat that Donald Trump was going to turn Gaza into a parking lot, like Reagan threatened to turn Tehran into a parking lot. Donald Trump already is making the world an infinitely better place. My friends, let me tell you what this deal means. America is back. Trump is back. 6:32 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask all of you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question du jour, as the French would say, of the day. Sponsored by Mario's. Mario's quality roofing, siding, and windows. Did President Trump play a factor? Was he a factor in the Israeli-Hamas ceasefire deal? We don't want to get into credit because credit's a very vague word. It can mean a lot of things and you can stretch it any way you want. But do you believe that Trump, his diplomacy, that of his envoy, his clear threat, and it was a very powerful threat to Hamas, was that the catalyst? Was that the motivator for Hamas to make all kinds of concessions and to come to the negotiating table? And now we have potentially 33 hostages coming home in a matter of a couple days. Yes or no? Did Trump play a key factor in the Israeli-Hamas ceasefire deal? I'm an A all the way. I think you have to be blind, frankly, not to see it. But that's me. I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in National ER. You can also vote via X, my handle there, at the Kuhner Report, all one word, Kuhn as in National ER. Joe Biden, again, bitter, jealous, petty, frankly, a jerk all the way to the end. He came into office being a jerk. He's leaving office being a jerk. Listen now to Biden. After he made his speech, not the farewell address, I'm going to get to that later, his farewell address to the nation, but when this news broke of a ceasefire deal, he then addressed the country, gave a quick impromptu press conference, and it was, I negotiated it. I made the deal happen. I've been in foreign policy for 50 years. Me. I deserve credit for this. I made it happen. This is my ceasefire deal. It was all me. He's then, as he finishes, he's asked by a reporter, well, who do you think deserves credit for this ceasefire? You or the Trumpster? Listen to Biden's response. Roll cut 5, Mike.
Thank you.
What's credit for this, Mr. President, you or Trump?
Is that a joke? Oh, thank you.
I mean, I'm sorry. What a, how do I say this? I guess, what a dink. Okay, there, let me clean it up just a little bit. I'm sorry. What a dink. What a jerk. What a jerk. Now, here's the problem. Forget that the Israelis say it was Trump. Forget that the Qataris and the Egyptians, who were key mediators who were there, said it was the Trump factor. Okay? Forget common sense. Forget all of that. Even Biden's own State Department. Listen to this. As Biden was saying, is that a joke? Is that a joke? Here is Matthew Miller, State Department spokesman under Biden, pretty much at the exact same time. Look at what he says. The exact opposite of what his boss is saying. Trump was key. Roll cut 5A, Mike.
When it comes to the involvement of President-elect Trump's team, it has been absolutely critical in getting this deal over the line. And it's been critical because, obviously, as I stand here today, this administration's term in office will expire in 5 days. And one of the things that we have always said about this deal is that when you get from stage 1 to stage 2, that the United States, Egypt, and Qatar are the guarantors of this deal. And Egypt and Qatar will push Hamas to stay at the bargaining table and to get from stage 1 to stage 2, and the United States will push Israel to stay at the bargaining table to get from phase 1 and phase 2. So obviously those are promises we cannot make on behalf of the United States for any longer than the next 5 days. And so it's critical that all of the parties to the agreement and the other mediators see that when the United States is in the room making commitments, those are lasting commitments that extend beyond this administration into the next.
Now, let me tell you, yeah, he's right. Obviously, the Trump presidency, the Trump administration is going to have to implement this deal, especially the second phase, if we get to the second phase. But look, I'm sorry. This is what set the table for all of this. This is what gave everybody a kick in the pants. Because remember, this went on for 9-10 months. They've been negotiating nonstop. It's been honestly an endless, fruitless, tedious, never-ending negotiation. No, the difference maker. I mean, look, Israel was winning on the battlefield. They have broken the back of Hamas's leadership. I mean, there are many other factors as well. Hamas is being squeezed on multiple fronts. So they are more desperate for a deal now than they were, let's say, 8, 9, 10 months ago. No question. No question. Hamas needs this deal. because they can't continue this war for much longer. But to me, if you want to know what the decisive factor was, let me play it again. Because once he said this, everybody says the intensity of the negotiations picked up, the seriousness of the negotiations picked up, and they could smell the fear among Hamas's leaders and among Hamas's negotiators. This was just 6 weeks ago. Roll cut 5B, play it again, Mike.
All hell will break out. If those hostages aren't back, I don't want to hurt your negotiation. If they're not back by the time I get into office, all hell will break out in the Middle East.
Can you elaborate?
And it will not be good for Hamas, and it will not be good, frankly, for anyone. All hell will break out. I don't have to say anymore, but that's what it is. And they should have given them back a long time. They should have never taken them.
Of course.
There should have never been the attack of October 7th.
Of
People
course.
forget that. But there was, and many people are killed. They're no longer hostages.
Hamas was the aggressor. Hamas attacked Israel. Hamas committed unspeakable atrocities. Hamas took these hostages. These are savages and barbarians. And when he said it's all hell's going to, break out, or all, there's going to be hell to pay. And he said it's not just going to be Hamas, it's going to be others. Let me tell you what he was saying. That Hamas's main backer, Iran, that's what the signal, the Iranians were like, oh no. Is Ronald Reagan again, all over again? No, he'll turn us into a parking lot. No, Allah, we must make a deal. So it was a clear message to Hezbollah, to Iran, to all of Iran's proxies, to Hamas's big benefactor, the Ayatollahs, the mullahs. Guys, I'm not just going to go after Hamas. I'm going to go after all of you. Now, maybe Israel can't wipe all you guys out, but I can. So don't play with me. I want the hostages home. He projected American power. He projected American will. He projected American strength, like he did in his first term when he kept Iran in a box. And Hamas never dared to attack Israel. And he projected it again. And because of this, God willing, the hostages are going to come home. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Mark in New Hampshire. You're going to kick us off, Mark. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Very good. How are you, Mark?
Fantastic. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Welcome, Mark.
Yeah, I wanted to start off by offering my condolences on the passing of your father.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, I heard about all this news this morning, and I just, one of those things you had a feeling like, of course they were going to try to take credit for this on the way out the door. But what I couldn't quite wrap my head around was if they claim that these negotiations started back in May, okay? So from May to November, that's what, 6 months? Wouldn't you try to negotiate this and have the hostages come home and try to look good before the election? Whether or not it was Biden staying in the race or passing off the torch to cackling Kamala. I mean, wouldn't that have given her some ammunition, like a little boost to maybe help her campaign? I mean, now all of a sudden the Trumpster's back in. He's a lame duck. He's got a few days left, thank God. And now all of a sudden he's trying to claim credit for this. I mean, what a joke.
Brilliant. Mark, please don't be a stranger. Call again. You hit the nail right on the head. If this was all Biden's brilliant negotiating skill, then why don't you bring a deal home before the election? It would have helped you or the cackler win. This was all Trump. 649 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. All right, couple lines are open if you want to jump on. Let me ask all of you, what do you make now of this tentative, very tentative ceasefire deal signed between Israel and Hamas in Qatar? American negotiators played an absolutely instrumental role. Trump clearly had a very decisive influence on the decision by Hamas, not just to negotiate, but to begin releasing hostages. And to show you the Trump factor in all of this, the deal, if it's ratified by the Israeli cabinet, and right now they're holding off, so we're going to see about the developments on that front. But for now, they're not ratifying the deal just yet. But should they ratify the deal, it begins to be implemented. The first day of implementation, this Sunday, January 19th. What's happening on Monday? What's happening on Monday? January 20th. Well, it is Martin Luther King Day. God bless him. But Trump's being inaugurated. Shazam! What a coincidence. I think to me it's pretty much obvious. I mean, they even start the implementation literally 24 hours before Trump is sworn in. To me, that tells you everything you need to know. Trump was the one who got this deal going. Trump is the reason why they even got to the table. Trump is the reason why they got even some kind of a deal in place. And I think, honestly, if Hamas knows what's good for it, it better release all of the hostages, because Donald Trump is not playing around. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Barbara in Baltimore. Thanks for holding, Barbara, and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. And my condolences about your father. I did not know about it when I spoke to you last week.
Thank you, Barbara.
But I want to extend that to you. Now, as for what's going on right now, your question, absolutely, Donald Trump is the reason that there's even this much of a negotiation. But I didn't know that it was not ratified. I'm glad to know that, because now it becomes like a cliffhanger. And Hamas is wondering what they should do. Because I'm with Senator Cotton. Senator Cotton said they should have 5 days to release all of the hostages, or it's over. And send in the troops, send in the bombs. He didn't say that, but that's what I'm saying. Just turn it into a parking lot, because I don't know how much would be lost if they did that. It'd be a sad thing, but I don't know if there's a lot of redemption for people that violent that can do the things that those people did. But in any event, President Trump is absolutely the reason why. And it was really pathetic to watch Joe Biden. Everything he said was just so slimy. He looked so pitiful, trying to take credit for something that he really had nothing to do with. And I think that's why they went on and just said, okay, we'll take this deal. So it'll give him something to, at least he can go out with that. And Benjamin Netanyahu still doesn't have to really stand by it. I didn't realize that it wasn't ratified.
Apparently, this is breaking, Barbara, just so that you know. So the Israeli cabinet has delayed its vote on this truce, this ceasefire in Gaza. They're claiming that Hamas has reneged on parts of the deal. Now, it doesn't mean that the deal is off. It just means they're going to wait. They want to make sure that Hamas rectifies whatever they're reneging on. Hamas has come out and said they're committed to this. They're committed to the ceasefire. They're committed to the truce. Look, what I find disgusting, Barbara, on so many levels, frankly, is that they're dangling these 33 hostages like a carrot. And because Israel is a Western society and a Western country like us, they value every human life. For them, strapping a suicide bomb around your chest and blowing yourself up to go to get your 72 virgins in Allah, to go see Allah in heaven, in paradise, as they say, is something abhorrent. So Palestinians, especially Hamas, their concept of human life is very cheap. Very, very cheap. In Israel, like in the West, it's very high. So they value every citizen, every hostage, every one they want to bring back. So apparently they've got 33 that they're dangling of the 98, but 10 of the 33 are already dead. So this is to honor the families who say, look, we just want to bury our dead. Or we want to bury our sons and daughters, please. We want them home, for God's sakes. We don't want their bodies to be mutilated or we'll never see them again. So Bibi Netanyahu, look, to his, to be fair to him, is under tremendous domestic pressure to deliver these hostages back. And on the other hand, he's got nationalists within his own government, and I don't blame them, who are saying the goal of the war was to root out and destroy and eliminate Hamas. So now we're going to surrender all of these military gains and essentially give Gaza back, with the exception of a few buffer zones, and Hamas still survives? And their argument is, we've got 400 Israeli soldiers who gave their lives for us to win this war, and we're just going to squander their sacrifices? So this is creating a huge debate in Israeli society and within the Israeli government, even within the Israeli military. But the fact is that right now, as things stand, they did sign a deal. Everybody did sign on the dotted line. The Israeli cabinet now says that they're holding or delaying the vote, holding back on the vote until Hamas, they say, stops reneging on certain parts of the deal. So this may not happen. I think it will, but this may not happen. Now, I think the other game changer, Barbara, and then I'm going to throw it right to you. Look, Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israelis have said this from the beginning. They have been held back. Their hands have been tied. They have been restrained by Biden every step of the way. With Trump in office, and this is why Bibi, I think, took that last step for peace. Because basically Trump said, look, I've got your back. You want the hostages? Let's make a deal. They have to abide by the ceasefire. All the hostages will come back. And Trump said, we will never allow Hamas back into power in Gaza again. If Hamas makes a play for power again, and they break the terms of the ceasefire, we unleash the dogs of war, meaning you, Bibi, and the Israeli military, you take the gloves off. I'm not Joe Biden. I'm not going to pressure you. I'm not going to use leverage. I'm not going to threaten to withhold weapons or aid. I'm going to give you carte blanche, green light. You take them out. So the difference maker is not just that Trump threatened Hamas and really Iran. It's that they realize now, 4 years under Trump, Hamas realizes, oh boy, the days of appeasement are over. If we don't do some kind of a deal, Israel is going to wipe us out because Trump will finally have Israel's back. Barbara, agree, disagree?
100% are right. 100% right. I feel compassion for Benjamin Netanyahu, especially since he's got so much internal pressure. I didn't realize so many liberals lived in Israel. The Jews who are just very liberal. They're a little more than I thought they were. But I don't believe that this thing is going to hold because Hamas they don't keep their word. And I don't believe all of 98 people are still alive. And I think that's why they want to dribble these hostages out, because they're not alive. I think if we've got a dozen or two of them still alive, we'll be blessed. But they hate them so much, and they've had them so long. And I just think, I just don't believe it. I pray that they are, but I think they're dangling that number out there. And the only way we would know for sure is if they're forced to send them all out, which is how it should be. And I can't even imagine Hamas staying in power, that Israel is going to pull back and let them put those tunnels back in. They would have to bomb that place on their way out if they did that. And I mean, they'd have to send in bunker bumpers just from the ground, from underground, tear it up. Because how could they ever trust them to live next door to those people again?
I agree. Oh, Barbara, I so agree. You're on fire today, Barbara, as usual. Barbara, thank you very much for that call. No, look, to me, having Hamas return to power in Gaza is a complete non-starter. That's non-negotiable. I mean, come on. Forget Israel. The world should say absolutely not. After the atrocities of October 7, after their calls for the extermination of the Jewish people and the Jewish state, after everything that they've done, we're going to put them back in power? No way. Absolutely no way. I mean, you're begging for another attack. You're begging for another October 7. No way. And I don't think Bibi will allow that. I mean, his government will fall. Look, to be fair, I just really want to stress this. Look, and I agree with you. There is a left wing in Israel. You're right, Barbara. But look, to be fair, okay? Look, Israel's a small country. It's a lot of people know each other. How do I say this? It's not like America. As they say, in every village, an Israeli has a relative. So it's an ethno-national state, as they say. Okay, like Ireland, like Croatia, where my parents are from, or there's many, in other words, small country, people they're very tight-knit. And so if your brother was being held hostage, if your daughter was being held hostage, if your mother or your aunt was being held hostage, you'd want that hostage home. It's not a question of being left or right. And that's the pressure that Bibi, feels all the time. These are his fellow Jews. These are his fellow Israelis. He's got people who are in the military who are telling him, hey, look, my brother is being held, probably being tortured. For God's sake, let's get him home. And once we get the hostages back, then we can deal with Hamas. Look, we've decimated them in Gaza. We've decimated Hezbollah. We've really hammered Iran. We've done very well. We've won a lot of wins on the battlefield. Let's bring our men and women home. Look, there's the story that's gripping Israel. All of you need to know this. Is about a 1-year-old boy. He turned one, literally turned one, inside the tunnels of Hamas. He was kidnapped at 6 months or whatever it was, 9 months? He was 9 months old. He was kidnapped. This Sunday, he will turn 2. This boy will have turned 2 years old. Most of his life will have been in a tunnel in Hamas. He's been held hostage for 15 months. He's going to turn 2 years old this weekend. A 5-year-old brother has been held hostage, and his mother and father have been held hostage. The Israeli people want that young baby back. They want that family back home, safe and sound. So I know you're saying, well, but, think about what you're surrendering. But it's very emotional. And that baby has been on Israeli TV screens for the last 15 months. So that's what I'm saying. In Israel, there's tremendous pressure on Netanyahu to deliver the hostages. 617-266-6868 is the number. Eddie in Charleston. Thanks for holding, Eddie, and welcome.
Yes, Jeff. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Eddie?
Good. I just want to make a couple of comments. First of all, thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure, Eddie.
First, a couple of comments. You were right on about President Trump compared to President Reagan, because I could testify to that, because I'm a United States Navy veteran, and I served under President Reagan, and I was in that part of the world 40 years ago. And they were fighting then, they're fighting now, and 40 years from now they'll be fighting again. There's no end to it. What I think Israel has to do, it's a bad deal. You're getting, 100 and something hostages, and you're releasing 800 terrorists? Bad deal. 1 for 1. You get, just like they exchange prisoners of war, 1 for 1. You give us one, we'll take one. You give us one in a body bag, you get one back in a body bag. That's the way you have to deal with these people, these terrorists in Hamas, in the PLO. When I dealt with them back in the 80s, the Palestinian Liberation Organization. Okay? President Reagan drew a line in the Mediterranean. We had to deal with Lebanon. We had to deal with Gaddafi. Gaddafi said to our ship, if you cross this line, we would blow you up. Guess what? President Reagan told us to cross it. Guess what? Nothing happened. We called their bluff. Nothing happened. That's all it is. It's a bunch of bluff. And this deal, I knew this deal wasn't going to go through. Hamas has never lived up to their word. They've never lived up to their word. That's why they're still fighting.
Well, Eddie, look, just to reinforce what you're saying, Eddie, apparently now Bibi has issued a statement. This is breaking as I speak to you. He now says that he personally has ordered a delay in the cabinet, the Israeli cabinet, voting on this deal. And he says he's claiming that Hamas is already backtracking or reneging on parts of the deal. And he says if they're not going to fix it, if they're not going to return to the original deal, there will be no deal. And the war against Hamas will continue. So he's already saying that he's been double-crossed by Hamas. And so he's going to delay the vote. So we'll see now what happens. But basically, Bibi is saying, and I think to be fair, it's not just that Hamas has reneged on parts of the deal. I'm sure that's true. But I think he's also now starting to see within his own government that many of his coalition partners are saying, the nationalists are saying, so let me get this straight. They've got 98 of our hostages. Many of them are dead. They're going to release in this first phase 33, 23 of whom are alive. So they say 10 are dead. So we're basically getting 10 dead bodies and 23, living hostages. So we're basically getting a third of the hostages. That's what we get. Period. And what do they get? Over 1,000 Palestinian political prisoners. Almost all of them Hamas terrorists, jihadists. Hundreds of them, by the way, life in prison for murder. I mean, these are murderers, stone cold murderers. So they're going to get another 1,000 terrorists who are going to kill how many more innocent Jewish civilians in the future? Plus, we have to pull out of most of Gaza. As I said, there's a buffer in the north Israel will protect and a buffer in the east. But for the most part, most of Gaza, they're out. And we effectively end the war. I mean, I know it's temporary. It's not a permanent end to the war. But it gives them the breathing room that Hamas wants. So Hamas stays alive. Hamas is not defeated. I mean, they're losing on the battlefield, but this ceasefire deal, Hamas gets to survive and fight another day. And so they're going to say, we get 33 hostages, basically 10 dead bodies, 23 living hostages. And we surrender all of the military gains of the last 15 months. And they get 1,000 terrorists. And Hamas still emerges out of this in somehow intact. When the objective of the war, as Bibi said repeatedly, and he was right, was to exterminate, annihilate, destroy Hamas once and for all. They're like, this is a bad deal. This is a bad deal. And so maybe Bibi's looking at this and saying, you know what? Maybe I got caught up in the euphoria of bringing home the hostages. maybe this is not a good deal for my people. So we're going to see what's going to happen. But anyway, Eddie, look, you're right. Hamas, PLO, these Palestinian terrorists are savages and animals. And I don't trust them as far as I can throw them. And that's why, to me, they ran circles around Joe Biden. They trampled over Joe Biden. In fact, again, he gave his ridiculous farewell address last night. It's no accident October 7 happened under Biden's watch. Do you honestly think that they would have dared to do something like this under Trump? They had 4 years under Trump. They wouldn't. Hamas would say, are you nuts? Trump will wipe us all out. Or to be more accurate, he's going to unleash Israel to wipe us all out. And the mullahs in Tehran who fund Hamas, who arm Hamas, who train Hamas, they would have never allowed Hamas to unleash that attack, saying, are you crazy? Trump will carp his bombers to oblivion. So weakness invites aggression. And after Afghanistan, everything to me goes back to that debacle in Afghanistan, Eddie. When we left Afghanistan with our tail between our legs, and we let what happened, those 13 brave American soldiers get blown up and killed at Abbey Gate, and surrendered everything to the Taliban. That's when Vladimir Putin said, I'm invading Ukraine. That's when Iran said, we're taking over the Middle East. That's when Hamas said, we're going to go and massacre as many Jews as we can. Weakness invites aggression. And that, to me, is going to be Joe Biden's legacy. He left America in ruins and the world on fire. And already, Trump hasn't even been sworn in yet. And already, you're starting to see American power, American prestige come back. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, double-barreled question. Does Trump deserve credit for this tentative ceasefire? And if you were Israel, would you take this deal? 720 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, a lot of reaction now on Messenger, on the text line. The phones are jammed. This is from 617. You can text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470, 617. Jeff, the cornerstone of the Hamas charter is the destruction of Israel. Nowhere in this deal do I see Hamas's recognition of Israel's right to exist as a state right where it is. That's all you need to know. Well, 617, it's very interesting that you should bring this up, because it seems to me now pretty obvious that a lot of people in Israel, a lot of people within the Israeli government, and Netanyahu himself are starting to feel maybe we were pressured by Biden. In fact, I got to give credit to Sandy. Sandy was the one who really, mentioned this to me and said, look, Jeff, there's an angle here that I think a lot of people are missing. Bibi's starting to ask himself, and I think a lot of Israelis, were we falsely pressured by Biden into accepting a bad deal because Biden was so obsessed with his legacy? It's 4 days now until Trump is inaugurated. I don't know if you've seen the latest CNN poll. To me, this is, again, CNN. This is liberal, pro-Biden, pro-Democrat CNN. They say, in their poll results, 61% of Americans consider Biden a quote-unquote failed president. Their grade for him is an F. Only 36% say the country's on the right track with Biden. That's according to CNN. Now, if you're 61% on CNN say you're an absolute failure, your legacy is in tatters. Your legacy is finished. So he is obsessed now on his way out the door with his legacy. And that's why he was so quick. I mean, I've never seen him like this. What was it, 12:20, 12:30? They announced a ceasefire, but was it 11:45 noon yesterday? By 12:30, there he was. Me. I take credit. I did it. This is my deal. And he put so much pressure on Israel and Hamas, but especially Israel, to sign on the dotted line that I think many Israelis and Bibi are saying, I don't think we can swallow this deal. Yeah, this may help Biden with his legacy, but we're left holding the bag. What do we get out of this? Yes, we get the 33 hostages, but look what we have to give up in exchange. Now, just super quick to give you just a taste of Biden's obsession with his with this deal and his legacy. This was Biden yesterday. Within half an hour, 45 minutes of its announcement. Roll cut 3, Mike.
This is the ceasefire agreement I introduced last spring. Today, Hamas and Israel have agreed to that ceasefire agreement and the whole ending the war. You know, those of you who have followed the negotiations can attest, the road to this deal has not been easy. I've worked in foreign policy for decades. This is one of the toughest negotiations I've ever experienced. And we reached this point because of the pressure that Israel built on Hamas, backed by the United States.
I mean, it's me. It's all me. I made it happen. Now, listen to him saying, yeah, Trump is going to have to implement this deal. Yeah. But hey, don't forget who negotiated it. By the way, it's all a lie. I mean, the key negotiator was Trump's envoy. Okay. The only reason why we even got to this point was because of Trump, that we're even close to some kind of a deal. But it doesn't matter. He wants the credit. That's what it's all about. It's all about his legacy. Roll cut 4A, Mike.
I'd also note this deal was developed and negotiated under my administration, but its terms will be implemented for the most part by the next administration. In these past few days, we've been speaking as one team. This has been time of real turmoil in the Middle East. But as I prepare to leave office, our friends are strong, our enemies are weak, and there's a genuine opportunities for a new future.
So you see, it's all about his legacy. He keeps saying that. We're stronger. Our friends are stronger. Our enemies are weaker. Blah, 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 blah. That's my legacy. That's my legacy. And I think the Israelis are starting to wake up to the fact that this, why we want this deal. Why? I mean, yes, to bring some of the hostages home and that, like I said, that poor baby and the baby's family. Yes, of course. Very emotional. Very emotional. But you look at it and you're like, so, and they get 1,000 terrorists? Convicted murderers? And we got to pull out of most of Gaza? And Hamas survives and they stay at least afloat? And maybe this war ends with Hamas still together, still intact? No. What are you, nuts? So there may be some serious doubts and reservations now. Israel may be having some very serious second thoughts about this. My question to you, what do you make now of this deal? Did Biden pressure Israel into accepting a bad deal? And do you believe there will be peace? Your calls next. 7:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. John in the great state of Arizona. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
Sandy was so pleasant this morning and nice as always. And I'd like to say she's right. And I just wanted to add a couple of things to what she said. And that if you notice, Sullivan, I believe it was, came right out after Joe Biden gave his little pat on the back for the ceasefire. Sullivan came out and mentioned Trump's help in it. That was all, to me, as much a setup to put it back on Trump, make it look like Trump was so involved. Then when it gets sprung that it was like I want to say it was such a surprise on Bibi that he really can't do anything with it, and it's just another whack-a-mole. And apologize, I've been a little sick, but you know what the game whack-a-mole is anyway. So that there's another little pot there to have to hit the guy on the head or whatever. And I just think it was all a setup. And I think Trump's involvement was probably to get the ceasefire. And that's it. Get a ceasefire, give some time to work it when he gets in office. But I still think that the whole thing is just another setup to create problems for Trump once he takes office.
John, I think you're really onto something. I think clearly, look, Trump wants two things. He wants the hostages, all of them, released, and he wants the war to end. And he said repeatedly, Hamas must never come back to power. That's it. He goes, that's it. Hamas out, permanently out, and the war ends, and the hostages come back. That's it. That's what he wants. And I think it was the Biden people who clearly put poison pill after poison pill after poison pill to look, Biden can't stand Netanyahu. It's an open secret. Biden can't stand Israel. It's an open secret. Biden has tied the hands of Israel for the last 15 months. And he's now trying to saddle them with a horrible deal. Now, to show you how vested he is, John, in this so-called deal. Look, last night, by the way, it appears that it was pre-taped. That's what a lot of people on social media are saying. I can't confirm it or corroborate it. It certainly seemed to me like it was pre-taped. So apparently he was addressing the nation live last night from the White House at 8 o'clock in the evening, Eastern Standard Time. But it appears it was pre-taped, okay? Again, he's just a liar from beginning to end. But it's his farewell address. In his farewell address, and I want to play the cut, get your reaction, John, and everybody listening. Look at how important this ceasefire deal is to his legacy. And look how he keeps like, me, I did it, we did it. This is my baby. Nobody else but me. Roll cut. This is him, not at the press conference in the middle of the day now. Farewell address to the nation last night. Roll cut 11. Mike.
I'm speaking to you tonight from the Oval Office. Before I begin, let me speak to important news from earlier today. After 8 months of nonstop negotiation, by my administration, a ceasefire and a hostage deal has been reached by Israel and Hamas, the elements of which I laid out in great detail in May of this year. This plan was developed and negotiated by my team and will be largely implemented by the incoming administration. That's why I told my team to keep the incoming administration fully informed, because that's how it should be, working together as Americans.
So, you see, John, he's desperate now to set the narrative. I made this happen. I'm the peacemaker. I'm the deal maker. No, all I did was I just let Trump's people know what was going on. I kept them informed because they're going to have to finalize and implement. But this is my baby all the way. Well, now, John, the Israelis are looking at this and they're saying, Joey, I don't think this is such a good deal for Israel, and I don't think it's such a good deal for the Middle East, and I don't think it's such a good deal for the world. Because if Hamas stays in power, and if we've got to surrender most of Gaza, and if we've got to release 1,000 killers and terrorists, and we're getting a third of the hostages, 10 of whom are already dead, maybe this is a no deal. And if if Israel doesn't sign, or if Israel backs away because Hamas is now reneging on parts of the deal, then ironically this blows up in Biden's face, because the idiot now couldn't share credit. He had to try to take all of the credit. So now, if this thing goes down and we don't have a deal and it blows up, doesn't this humiliate Biden on his way out the door? John, am I wrong?
No, Jeff, you're absolutely right. And I'll tell you what else. He is the personification of evil. This man will do anything to embellish himself, his life, everything. He's always been like that. And I also believe he wants to destroy the Israelis. His administration is anti-Semitic through and throughout. This whole gameplay is to put Israel in a place where he creates a lot of hate toward them, and also that they will not, they will, but that they would lose their country, their lives, and wipe out the history of the Israel.
Bingo. Bingo. John, as always, thank you very much for that call. No, look, what this deal effectively does, and you can see how this has got the hand of Tony Blinken, the hand of Biden's people. This snatches defeat from the jaws of victory. That's what this does. Israel has won the war. They've got Hamas on the ropes. They've driven them out of, 95% of Gaza. They have shattered and destroyed most of the underground tunnels. I mean, they've smashed Hezbollah. They've really crippled Iran's missile and military capabilities with these incredible airstrikes and missile strikes. And now you want to sign this deal? Well, why would you do that? And you've got Biden breathing down your neck trying to force you to sign this deal? It's a bad deal. It's a bad deal, my friends. Agree, disagree. Andy in Halifax. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
I'm so sorry for your dad. My dad passed with Parkinson's as a major contributor, so I know exactly.
I'm very sorry to hear that, Andy.
Yeah, it's a big thing. So, this quote-unquote deal, I think the only fingerprints of Trump that's on this deal is the timeline. That Biden can now come out and claim that, he's been working on this and he's such a statesman and he knows these geopolitical and that this is all his. This is such a bad deal, and we all know how good a deal maker Trump is. So I think this has got the Democrats' fingerprints all over it. I mean, they think Afghanistan pullout was a good deal. Biden come out and tell us that Afghanistan was a huge success, the withdrawal. So that's his measure of how good a deal this is. And, as far as these bodies that they're going to give back, how do we even know that they are who they say they are? They could be giving us, I don't mean to be crass, but a bag of bones and saying, oh, this is your loved one, and it really isn't. I don't trust them one bit, and leaving them in power, this has nothing to do with Trump. This is such a bad deal. I don't know what you think, Jeff.
Oh, I think you're dead on. Look, Andy, I'm speculating now, okay? I have no evidence. No one from the Trump team has told me this. I haven't read it anywhere. I'm just speaking from the gut, from the heart. I wouldn't be surprised if, everybody got caught up in the euphoria yesterday. Oh, my God, the hostages are going to start coming home. And again, it's women, children. I mentioned that poor baby and that, 2-year-old kid and the 5-year-old kid and that family. And everybody's, it's heartbreaking. It pulls at your heartstrings. So everybody wants the babies to come home. They want the mothers to come home. They want people over 50, some of the elderly people. There's some of them 70s and 80s. They want them to come home. So everybody got caught up in the euphoria of yesterday. But I think when you look at the details, and as they say, the devil is always in the details, I wouldn't be surprised if Trump picked up the phone and called his friend Bibi and said, look, Bibi, don't worry about it. I don't think you should sign. If Hamas is already breaking the deal and these are the terms, buddy, it's okay. I'm coming to power in 4 days. Don't worry. You and I can settle this. So I would not be shocked if Trump is telling him, no deal. It's a bad deal. Because this deal has Joe Biden, the bad terms in it. This is Israel's Afghanistan. That's what this is. You're right, Andy. To leave Hamas in power and pull out of Gaza and give them 1,000 terrorists? My God, what are they thinking? 749 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, my friends, this is from Lori on Messenger. And I think in many ways, Lori hit the nail right on the head. Jeff, I think I now see what Biden is doing. He claims he brokered the deal between Israel and Hamas and that Trump will have to implement it. But what Biden is actually doing is setting a trap for Trump because something will go wrong, Israel will be hurt, and then Trump will be blamed for having ruined the deal. Then Biden can walk around on his high horse and say he was the better president in foreign policy and that Trump is bringing the peace deal down and ruining it. It's all just another setup from the Biden administration to affect and ruin Trump's presidency. Bingo. To me, there's no other way. I mean, why would you accept these terms if you're Israel? You're crazy. Now, Joe Biden, as I said before, addressed the nation last night. His farewell address. And he's been doing this now, repeating the same speech for about 2 weeks now. And in a nutshell, he's trying to claim that he would have beaten Donald Trump, I swear to you, had he not been overthrown in that coup, had he not stepped aside to allow Kamala Harris to become the Democratic nominee, and that he says he was a phenomenal president. He keeps saying, his backers continue to insist, he continues to insist, the media incredibly continue to insist, and he insisted last night, again, ad nauseum, that he was an incredibly successful president. And his argument, I'll give it to you in a nutshell. By the way, he even issued a farewell letter, like George Washington. I'm not kidding. It wasn't just the address to the nation. It was also a farewell letter. And in that farewell letter, like in the farewell address, like in his speeches of the last couple of weeks, this is the argument, that he inherited a nightmare from Trump. A once-in-a-century pandemic, according to Joey. An economic crisis akin to the Great Depression. And that and a world destabilized and in chaos. But because of Joey's brilliant statesman-like leadership, he says, we overcame the pandemic. We overcame this depression. We overcame the economic crisis. And what we saw under his leadership, according to Joey, Dementia Joe, is the world now is better than ever. Our alliances are stronger than ever. America is stronger on the world stage more than ever. Believe it or not, the border has never been more secure. That's what he's literally arguing. And that the economy is booming, the economy is growing, that he made historic investments in infrastructure, in artificial intelligence, in green energy, in electric vehicles, that he is going to be remembered and will go down in history as the 21st century of Franklin D. Roosevelt. That he will go down, he will be remembered as a man who presided over peace and prosperity, and that he will now be acknowledged as one of the great, I swear to you, as one of the greatest presidents ever. And then he has a warning. He has a warning, he says. My leadership was incredible. It was morning again in America. But now dark days are coming. Very dark days. Trump, Elon Musk, even Mark Zuckerberg now, Meta, Facebook. Zuckerberg now says he's going to end fact-checking. Zuckerberg now says he wants to work with the Trump administration. Zuckerberg says he wants to restore free speech on Facebook. Now, my friends, something very sinister is afoot. There's an oligarchy, a tech oligarchy, an ultra-wealthy oligarchy. It is now rearing its ugly head. And if we don't watch it, it will destroy and consume our democracy, our freedoms, and America itself. I swear to you, listen now to Joey deliver his farewell address from the White House last night. And now he says there is something sinister afoot. Wink, wink, Donald Trump. Roll cut 6, Mike.
I want to warn the country of some things that give me great concern. This is a dangerous concentration, and that's a dangerous concentration of power in the hands of a very few ultra-wealthy people. And the dangerous consequences if their abuse of power is left unchecked. Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair shot for everyone to get ahead.
I mean, and not just this, but these oligarchs, these billionaires, the Zuckerbergs, the Elon Musks, the Donald Trumps, they just don't want to pay their fair share in taxes. They're all a bunch of tax cheats and tax frauds. Roll cut 9, Mike.
People should be able to make as much as they can, but play by the same rules. Pay their fair share of taxes.
Oh, you mean like Hunter? Is that what you mean, Joe? Hey, Joey? You mean like Hunter Biden? How he paid his fair share? How your own son paid his fair share? Joey? You phony, you fraud, you. So, I want you to all stand back, okay? Just objectively. This is his parting message now to the country. We're 4 days away. It's pretty much done. He did his foreign policy farewell address. Now he did his overall farewell address. He's given us the letter. I mean, Karine Jean-Pierre did her final briefing yesterday. Another pack of lies. They're packing and they're on their way out. Right? So this is it. This is their swan song. And this is what the media now, this is a battle for history and how Biden will be remembered and how he should be remembered. That's what we're seeing right now. Okay. It's a fight for what they believe will be the narrative going into the Trump presidency. Here is a man whose own son was convicted, forget convicted, pled guilty to tax evasion and tax fraud on millions and millions of dollars of undeclared income. Who then, his old man, Joey, gave him a decade-long pardon, unheard of, in order to keep him out of jail. But he's lecturing us on wealthy people not paying their fair share? Just think about this just for a second, okay? Then let's get to the ultra-wealthy oligarchs. Because suddenly now, you see, look at the hypocrite. What we saw under Biden was the rise of an oligarchy. That there's no question about it. Notice, when Jeff Bezos was lining his pockets, he didn't care. When Bill Gates was lining his pockets, he didn't care. When Zuckerberg in 2020 spent over $400 million to help Biden steal the election. Remember all those, that dark money, the Zuckerbucks as they were called? To create all of these voting, boxes for the mail-in voting, and they could stuff all the ballots so they could steal the election. Then Zuckerberg was a hero. We see, when Zuckerberg was censoring people on COVID or censoring the New York Post on the Hunter Biden laptop, then Zuckerberg was a hero. Then it wasn't an oligarchy. Who did Biden just give the Presidential Medal of Freedom to last week? George Soros, a multi-billionaire, the sugar daddy, the donor of the Democratic Party. But you see, that's not an ultra-wealthy oligarchy, you phony, you fraud, you. That's then, you see, when the billionaires are backing Joey, when Reid Hoffman, a top Democrat donor, billionaire, when he funds the E. Jean Carroll case against Trump, Reid Hoffman's a great guy. Soros is a great guy. Bill Gates is a great guy. Jeff Bezos is a great guy. So then the globalist billionaires that were the real power behind the throne, then it's all fine and dandy. But let's get to the real oligarchs. The power behind the throne. When Joe Biden and the Biden crime family took literally, not millions, tens of millions of dollars, and the evidence is overwhelming. It's irrefutable. From China, from Ukrainian oligarchs, and then siphoned the money into 20 different shell companies controlled by Biden family members, including one, his own granddaughter. And then they divvied up the spoils with 10% for the big guy. No. Then the ultra-wealthy oligarchy, when it was benefiting the Biden crime family, because that's what he is. He's part of the oligarchy. That's what they are. The Obamas, the Clintons, all of them. They're part of the oligarchy. Suddenly, that's okay. But God forbid, if Elon Musk is going to turn X into a free speech zone, if Mark Zuckerberg is going to turn Facebook now into a free speech zone, suddenly, my friends, whoa, hey, it's the ultra-wealthy oligarchy. Democracy is nigh. It's coming to an end. The end is nigh. Everyone has been asking me now. In fact, I've been doing radio interviews on other shows. I'm going to be doing Irish radio again later today. This is the end. It's Biden's farewell. How should Biden go down in history? How should he be remembered? Let me give you my brutally honest opinion, like I'm in the confessional. He will go down, and I believe he should go down, as the worst, most corrupt criminal president in the history of the United States. I don't even think it's close. However horrendous Obama was, he was worse. Our border was destroyed under Biden. We endured a border invasion of historic proportions that I don't know we can ever honestly, truly recover from, to be brutally honest. This man, with all of the spending that he unleashed, triggered an historic inflation crisis we haven't seen in over 40 years. And for the record, and this needs to be said, Joe Biden inherited a booming economy. Look it up, please. Don't take my word for it. Okay? Wall Street Journal. Here it is. Wall Street Journal. James Freeman. Brilliant piece in the Wall Street Journal. By the time Joe Biden became president in January of 2021, the United States had experienced not one, not two, but 3 consecutive quarters of soaring economic growth. Double-digit economic growth. The economy was booming. People had already forgotten about the pandemic. The pandemic was in the rearview mirror. It was Biden who imposed the lockdown. It was Biden who tanked the economy. It was Biden who spent trillions and trillions of dollars unnecessarily, leading to crushing, punishing inflation that decimated the middle and working class. This was all under Biden. He did this. It was one self-inflicted wound after another. Who destroyed the border? He did. Who destroyed the economy? He did. Who brought about economic decline? He did. But it wasn't just the damage to the economy, to the middle class, to the border, to our national sovereignty. What did he do abroad? The way we left Afghanistan was the most humiliating defeat in the history of the United States. 13 Marines are dead. Billions of dollars of our finest, most sophisticated military equipment given not just to the Taliban, but from the Taliban to Madrasha and to the communist Chinese. He even gave them Bagram Air Base on a silver platter. And under Biden's watch, it was Putin who invaded Ukraine. Under Biden, we had the largest land war in Europe since World War II. October 7, Hamas and its genocidal attack on Israel under Biden's watch. Iran marching towards the nuclear bomb on Biden's watch. And I think the biggest story, and the one that was covered very little, was the military and economic rise of China. Whatever the Chinese wanted, Biden gave them. Whether it was stealing our intellectual property, whether it was giving them advanced missile and nuclear technology, whether it was dumping all of their products into the United States, whether it was allowing China now to carve out a powerful sphere of influence in Asia and to show you how bad it is. Okay, please, you need to hear this. This is what happened in 4 years under Biden. It's not just that our military was gutted and wokeified and transgendered. It's not just that we have $36 trillion in debt. My friends, let's sober up and get out of the bar. We are now the most indebted nation in the history of the world. And do you know who owns our foreign debt? China. China. Joe Biden made this country effectively an economic colony of China. Our supply chains owned by China. Much of our military technology owned by China. Much of our electric vehicles and electric batteries, China. It has gotten so bad. Do you honestly think we can defend Taiwan? Not that I don't love the people of Taiwan, the free, democratic people of Taiwan. Of course I do. China now has sea-based missiles. Listen to this. That have a range of 1,000 to 1,200 miles. They have them right off of their coast. Under Biden, we have less than 300 Navy ships. Our best and finest aircraft carriers can barely go 400 miles without refueling. As every military strategist worth his or her salt will tell you, how the hell can we project power in the Pacific? They've got missiles with a distance of 1,000 to 1,200 miles. Our aircraft carriers, which is what you need to fight a war in Asia, can barely go 400 miles without getting refueled. They could destroy and pick off our aircraft carriers. If China wants to invade Taiwan, there's nothing we could do to save Taiwan, short of a nuclear war. That's how weakened he's made us on the world stage. And if no one else is going to say it, I'm going to say it. That corrupt, treasonous SOB, that Benedict Arnold, and he was a Benedict Arnold, sold us out to the communist Chinese for a song. A couple $100 million bought him and his entire crime family. Now, this is why Trump wants to end the war in Russia and Ukraine. This is why Trump wants to end the fighting in the Middle East. This is why Trump says we've got to get a hold of the minerals, especially the rare earth minerals in Greenland. Because if you want to bring supply chains back to America, if you want to start making things again, technology, manufacturing, electronics, especially our military, missiles, ships, tanks, fighter jets, you need the lithium, you need the cobalt, you need the graphite, you need the rare earth minerals that China is trying to gobble up all over the world, that Greenland has a large deposit of. Trump's entire foreign policy, I can give it to you in a nutshell: end wars and focus and deter the rise of communist China before it's too late. Russia is not a threat. It has the economy of Italy. Iran can be contained. The biggest long-term threat that we face, you want to talk about an existential threat? It's an existential threat. They are the Soviet Union of the 21st century. It's communist China. And Donald Trump is the one who understands that. What Joe Biden did was empower, enrich, and enable the rise of communist China. He was an economic traitor at home, and he was a traitor abroad. That's Biden's legacy. 8:19 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me throw maybe the mother of all logs on the fire. Joe Biden's now presidency is winding down. Trump will be inaugurated, God willing, in 4 days. He is now claiming, Biden, Joey, Dementia Joe, that his legacy will be one of greatness, one of peace and prosperity. As he put it, economic power at home, diplomatic military power abroad. That's what he's claiming. I want to ask you, what do you say is Joe Biden's legacy? How would you grade him? He gives himself an A, if not an A+. I honestly give him an F. If I could give lower, I would, but F is the lowest you can give him. It's a failure. What do you give him? And over the last 4 years, what do you think were Biden's greatest accomplishments? Did he have any accomplishments? And what do you think were his biggest and worst mistakes? Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Are we as a country better off now than we were 4 years ago? I want to hear from you, Kuhner Country. How do you feel about Biden and his legacy? And what grade would you give him? And what should his legacy be in your mind? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, a lot of reaction. You can text us 70470, 70470. This is from 917. Jeff, as a matter of scale, to show what Biden has squandered, consider this. The insurance industry has estimated that if the LA fires were extinguished today, it would take about $250 billion to rebuild from the rubble. To date, Biden has sent the most corrupt place in the world, Ukraine, north of $300 billion. In other words, more than enough to rebuild all of Los Angeles. And what did we get in Ukraine? Death and destruction beyond imagination. A country destroyed. A generation of young men extinguished. More than 1 million dead men on both sides, and a plague of hatred that will never be healed. Fine work, Joey. That's just one piece of his legacy. I completely agree. I mean, if you just look at it, just that alone, I mean, he should be ashamed of himself. Okay, my sister wanted to weigh in. This is what she said. Jeff, bingo. You expressed my thoughts exactly. Joe Biden is the worst, most corrupt president in American history, and we have had some really, really bad ones. So I have to ask, if he was so great and all of his policies were that great, why did his own party lynch him? And why did his party lose in a landslide? To me, that's Jen, that's the checkmate argument. That's the absolute checkmate argument. I mean, FDR won 4 straight elections. I mean, I wasn't a big fan. I don't care for FDR personally. I think he was a bad president, but let that go. You can claim something because he won 4 elections. If this guy was the second coming of FDR, why did he get his clock cleaned? And why did Kamala get her clock cleaned? If he's greatness personified, it's all this peace and prosperity. Why did your own party force you out of the race? 617-266-6868. And this is from Mark on Messenger, and another one. Hit the nail right on the head. Again, best audience in the business. I know, I keep repeating it, but it's true. Here's Mark on Messenger. Jeff, just in case people forgot, can you please remind them? Trump, 0 wars. Biden, 2 wars. Trump, 0 inflation. Biden, record high inflation. Trump, secure border. Biden, wide open border. Trump, promises made, promises kept. Biden, promises made, promises broken. Trump, energy dominance. Biden, 0 energy at all. And most importantly, Trump, America first. Biden, America never. Is there anything else of major importance, Jeff, that I'm missing? Maybe the Middle East, Iran, but you did mention 2 wars. No, Mark, you pretty much nailed it, my friend. 617-266-6868. Mel in New York. Thanks for holding, Mel, and welcome.
Yes, good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Mel.
And once again, condolences to you and the family and the loss of your dad.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mel.
Yes. Listening. Every evening I listen to one of your colleagues either way, one of your colleagues, John B. Wells, in the evening, and he had a guest on last night by the name of Jack Maxey. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but anyhow, he was saying, because he's very on with what's going, with what's happening in the Middle East, and mainly all around the world. This guy's very, very, very astute. He was saying that the ceasefire that was declared, or tentative ceasefire, is just what seems to be for the Israeli army to rest and get themselves together and get back in.
Oh, Mel, please hang on. I want you to finish your thought. It's a very important point because I think you're really onto it. It appears now that Bibi realizes that Biden tried to screw him. And Bibi's saying, no dice, I'm not falling. I'm not falling for it. 8:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. I don't know about you, but honestly, I'm getting excited. I can't wait for Monday. Oh, man, 4 days and counting, really. Look, it's a mess. I'm going to get to Mel, I promise, in 20 seconds. But it's a mess. To me, Biden has left us a mess. Whether it's in the Middle East, whether, take Israel and Hamas now, and this ceasefire deal could be unraveling in front of our eyes. Whether it's Russia, Ukraine, China, the border, the economy, crime, it's a mess. But Trump's the man to clean it up. And to me, that's Biden's legacy. He left us a mess, an absolute mess. Agree, disagree. All right, let's go right back to Mel in New York. Mel was smoking hot. He was clicking on all cylinders. We got cut off. Mel, your point being that you think a lot of this deal that Biden was trying to force between Israel and Hamas, especially Netanyahu, in many ways was a trap. Please pick up where you left off, Mel.
Well, yeah, Ray Charles could see that it was a trap because Biden's never going to do anything that's going to benefit anybody but his crime syndicate, meaning his immediate family. He's a piece of dog crap that, doesn't even deserve a decent shovel to be picked up with. But anyhow, I just see that it's good because, if they can get a ceasefire, that'll give the Israeli army time enough to get themselves together and regroup. And go in there with guns ablazing and just take care of it. Wipe it out. Wipe out the problem. You even got Palestinian citizens over there. They want Hamas out of there so bad. They're even protesting and rallying to get them the heck out of there because they know the savagery that they are and the slavery that they're going to be under if they don't. But yes, but to go back to Biden, I want his backside on a pike. You got it going. I want him to pay for everything he's done to us in this country. And all his money, all his wealth that he stole to go back to the general fund, just strip him of everything he's got. Seize all his assets. Make them just as poor as Joe's turkey. But yes, Jeff, that's what I wanted to say. And thank you, brother. God bless you. And God bless America.
God bless you, man. Thank you so much for that call. Look, I think he's completely right. If Biden has his fingerprints on anything, it's a disaster. And I think Bibi looked at it and looked at it and looked at it, and he said, no. Especially if Hamas is already starting to renege. They haven't even, the implementation was Sunday, one day before Trump's, inauguration. And they're already reneging on parts of the deal? If you're Bibi, you're like, hey, I need this like I need a hole in the head. So, no, I'm sorry. Now, you're right. Look, the benefit is if you do have phase one, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds here, but it's a 2-phase deal. First phase is 6 weeks, 42 days. That's when Hamas releases those 33 hostages. 10 are presumed to be dead. I'm just going by what the Israelis and the Americans are saying. 23 are going to be alive. They believe 10 dead. And so the Israelis will get at least 1/3 of their hostages back. But Israel then has to release 1,000 Palestinian prisoners, most of whom are terrorists and murderers. Plus pull out of most of Gaza. Plus start to begin a permanent end to the war, which would leave Hamas, as I said, intact. Hamas would survive. That's a lot to give up. And I think Israel is starting to realize it may be too much to give up. I mean, we shall see. But again, Biden wanted a legacy. And it appears now that he cared more about the legacy than he did about what was right for Israel, what was right for our allies, what was right for the victims, what was right for America, what was right for our national interest. And, Sandy made another very good point to me off air. She said, remember again, Jimmy Carter and Reagan. The Iranians so hated Carter. They had such disrespect for Carter. They didn't want to give him the victory of having the hostages, our hostages, American hostages released until the day of Reagan's inauguration, i.e. when Carter is a private citizen. And honestly, this could be both the Israelis and Hamas saying, wink, wink, we got pretty much the outlines of a deal, but we're not going to let Joey have the credit on this. Like, blank you. If we have to, we'll wait 4 days and we'll let Trump sort everything out. Because if anyone can clean up the mess, it's Trump. So we're going to give Biden nothing. He's going to have nothing, as he was trying to do yesterday, nothing to crow about. So the idiot is taking a victory lap, and it appears there's no victory, at least for now. There's no deal. There was a tentative deal. Now Netanyahu has announced publicly he has delayed the vote in his cabinet, and who knows when they'll hold that vote. He may not have the votes in his cabinet to agree to the deal. And apparently Hamas is already reneging on parts of the deal. 617. That's why, look, honestly, you don't sign a deal with Hamas. You can't. Who can trust these animals and savages? 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. David in the great state of South Dakota. Thanks for holding, David, and welcome.
Deepest condolences for your loss of your father. And
thank you, David.
And you bet. And I got a grade for Joe Biden. F minus. Is that a grade? And on his way out, I could offer him something to kiss, but.
Well, you could say it, David. He could kiss your rear end, right?
Yeah, he could kiss my rear end.
David, I got to ask you this, okay? Because it's funny. I mean, I got to say, I was watching his farewell address last night, and look, either you laugh or you cry. So please, I'm not making light. Our country's in, that's why we all voted for Trump. Our country's in serious trouble. We know that. But, either you laugh or you cry. We got to laugh a little bit. We can't just, it's easy to get upset all the time, but we got to laugh a little bit. I couldn't help laughing at parts of his, I'm busting a gut. I'm like, does this guy believe what he's saying? He just reads what they put in front of him. And I'm like, does he really believe he's the second coming of FDR? Does he really believe that history will remember him as one of the greatest presidents ever? Like, David, honestly, do you think he really believes this? Or is this guy just so gone mentally? He's such a senile buffoon that he just mindlessly reads whatever they put in front of him, but he almost has no comprehension of what he's saying. Dave, does he believe his BS? Or does he not realize it's BS? I guess that's what I'm asking you.
No, I think in his mental dementia state of mind, I think that's probably what he believes. I think he actually does.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. David, thank you very much for that call. Well, look, I got to tell you, I went very quick, okay, super quick. I went to see my doctor yesterday. Nothing serious, a bit of a sinus infection, and my ears get clogged up once in a while. So I get them cleaned out, wax buildup and stuff. Anyway, so I see my doctor, ear, nose, throat specialist. Now, I want to stress this. Ear, nose, throat specialist, okay? And my sense of my doctor is he's a Democrat. Clearly not a Trump supporter, I'll tell you this. And out of the blue, we just start talking, Joe Biden, and it's the end, and Trump's going to be inaugurated on Monday, yada, yada, yada. And he tells me this. It's all from him. I didn't say anything. He was the one that came out of this. He said, I don't know how Jill Biden can live with herself. I don't know how his children can live with themselves. I don't know how Biden's staff and the media, that's what he said, the media, can live with themselves having covered up Biden's obvious dementia. So I said to him, look, as a doctor, I said, what do you think he has? He says, look, I don't know. I need to analyze him. But he goes, he clearly has dementia. And he goes, I'm not talking now. He goes, for at least a year minimum, it is very obvious that he's been suffering from dementia. And he goes, to show you how bad it is. And this made it it really struck home with me when he's put it this way. Again, he's an ear, nose, and throat specialist. Okay, he's not, doesn't do brain surgery or open heart surgery. He said, if he wanted to do a procedure with me, I don't know, he had a sinus infection, I need to operate on his sinuses, as an example. Or, anything that was intrusive. He says, I'm telling you, I would need permission from either his wife or his children. Because I would say to him, I'm sorry, you are not in a mental state to make a decision for yourself. I'm like, really, like that bad? He goes, I'm telling you, it was that bad. And he's a Democrat. And he says, history is going to have to reckon with the fact. This is what he said. Like Woodrow Wilson, whose wife and his top aide covered up the fact that he had a crippling heart attack, a stroke, and was incapacitated for the last year of his presidency. Joe Biden, in many ways, was the Woodrow Wilson of the 21st century. He wasn't FDR. He was Woodrow Wilson. He was a man who clearly was not up to doing the job of President of the United States, who had such severe advanced dementia that they had to systematically cover it up. To the point that a Democrat doctor said, I'm telling you, if he wanted a sinus infection cleared out under, with surgery, a minor surgery, I would not allow him to do it because he's not in the right state of mind unless either his family or his wife gave me the go-ahead. Ay, ay, ay. 850 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask all of you. When historians judge Joe Biden, what will be his legacy? What should be his legacy? And what grade would you give him? I would give him an F. David in South Dakota said, if it's possible, Jeff, F minus. I don't think you can do that, but anyway, okay. I get what you're trying to say. Look, just super, super quick. Woodrow Wilson, president 1912 to 1920, led America into World War I. Two-term president, one re-election in 1916, was the first truly progressive, and I mean that in the modern sense, leftist president, before FDR. FDR was the great progressive that established the New Deal, but Woodrow Wilson was the precursor in many ways. Now, when we look at Woodrow Wilson, everything that we judge him on is always tainted by, and I'm not saying it's wrong. To me, I think it's a very valuable point and a very apt point. The fact that the last year of his presidency, he suffered a massive stroke and heart attack as he was trying to campaign for the League of Nations. That was the precursor to the United Nations. And to get the Treaty of Versailles accepted in the Senate, it wasn't. It was shot down. It was voted down. They rejected the League of Nations. They rejected the treaty. They rejected the whole thing. And Wilson physically collapsed, had a massive stroke, and they hid it from the American people for about a year. Okay, give or take. I think it was 13 months. But anyway, a year. His wife knew, obviously. His top advisor, Colonel House, knew. And they lied. and his wife forged his signature on bills. Colonel House, held press conferences for him, and the media colluded then, as they did today with Joe Biden. Now, my point, just to bring it up to today, should the fact that Biden suffered from serious dementia, cognitive decline during his 4 years, but especially his last year, to the point, I mean, come on, the CNN debate, June 27th, the guy was practically a mental vegetable. Trump destroyed him in that debate. In many ways, Biden destroyed himself. And that's when everybody said, you gotta leave the race. I mean, look at you. You're finished. You're gone. You're done. You're cooked. Should the fact that he covered up his decline, that his wife covered up his decline, that his party and his people around him covered up his decline, that the media covered up his decline, should that be considered as well? And does that permanently taint Biden's legacy as it does, say, Woodrow Wilson's? I'm just going to throw that out there. Agree, disagree. Mags in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Mags, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff, and as always, God bless you, Sandy and Mike, for everything that you do, and keep up the good work, honey.
Thank you, Mags.
I agree 100%. Every single person that knew that he is incompetent should be held responsible. Mel from New York said it all the way I feel. They should lose everything. And I think that the Bidens, the Clintons, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, every single person that had their hands in any of this, everything should be stripped of them for what they did to our country and us personally. They are all treasonous criminals, and they need to be held responsible for it. Because if they're not, this is going to happen to our country again and again and again, that people think they can get away with this crap. And I'm not going to have it. And I know a lot of other people aren't either.
Mags, how would you grade Biden's presidency? In other words, did he have any positive accomplishments in your view? Anything you can point to?
I can't even think of one thing that he did that was good. Not one. He would definitely get an F minus, if it was possible. But he is the worst president in my 62 years. I'm going to tell you right now, I've been horrified by the last 4 years, and you know that's true, because I've had a real difficult time. This guy has done nothing, and all of his regime have done nothing but hurt us over and over again. Spending all of our money, giving it to other countries when we could have used it here for our veterans and the homeless in our own country. It is a disgrace what he's done, and the fact that he got away with it is worse. We need to deal with this and handle this, and if we don't, then we're all in trouble. Because honestly, we need to make sure that this doesn't happen again, Jeff. For your children, for my great nieces and nephews, for my nephews, this has to stop now.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more, Mags. I really couldn't. We can't survive another Biden presidency. Really. You're right. If this happens again, I honestly don't think we can survive it. That's how much he's weakened our country. So, Mags, as always, thank you very much for your call. I really appreciate it. 617-266-6868. And super quick, I don't know if you heard the latest story. To show you the corruption of all that money that was sent to Ukraine. Again, with no strings attached. Nobody following or monitoring the budget. Where's the money going? Nobody, no accounting for the money whatsoever. Billions and billions and billions just disappeared, gone. 8 Ukrainian generals. Let me repeat that. 8, not 1, not 2, not even 5. 8 Ukrainian generals had their mansions burned down in the California wildfires of the last week. That's just that we know of in Southern California. So you tell me, how do 8 Ukrainian generals have enough money to buy multi-million-dollar mansions in the Pacific Palisades or in Malibu or Beverly Hills? Those mansions were bought with our money. That's how much they're stealing in Ukraine. Now, that's just 8 that we know of because their homes burned down. That's how corrupt Biden was. And, a lot of people say, because I'm getting a lot of texts, they say, Jeff, well, what about Jimmy Carter? You say Biden was the worst, but wasn't Jimmy the worst? Look, Jimmy was bad. Don't get me wrong. Very, very bad. But look, you say accomplishments. He was a horrible president. Please, don't get me wrong. And Reagan rightfully, cleaned his clock and turned things around. But, let's be honest. You can point to several accomplishments of Jimmy. I mean, even, a stopped clock is right twice a day. Say what you want. Carter did bring peace between Egypt and Israel, which has lasted to this day. It's a real accomplishment. Jimmy Carter, again, an appeaser, a weakling, spineless, in many ways, allowed Iran to humiliate us, allowed the Soviets to run wild around the world, high raging inflation, raging interest rates, did tremendous damage to America. Don't get me wrong. But Jimmy Carter was not a crook. I'm sorry. I'm just calling it, the Georgia peanut farmer, whatever. He was out of his league. He was out of his depth. But in all honesty, everybody that worked for him, even Reagan, said, the guy's a patriot. He's wrong. He's misguided. He's a weakling. He's a flawed man, a very flawed man, who never should have left Georgia and should have stayed as governor because he wasn't ready for the big leagues as president. But Carter did, in his own way, love America. And he wasn't a crook. Jimmy Carter didn't steal money. So what I'm saying is, to me, Carter was infinitely better than Biden. And even then I'd give Carter an F. If you want, a D minus, minus, minus. But to me, Biden, the worst. The worst, not just because of his incompetence, but because of his deliberate destruction, his treason, his corruption, and his criminality. Carter was not a criminal. An incompetent buffoon, yes, but not a criminal. Joe Biden is a criminal and a traitor. Agree, disagree. Dave in Salem. I know you've been patiently holding, Dave. Thank you and welcome.
How you doing, Jeff?
Hi, Dave.
Jeff, let me tell you something. I've been watching everything, and I've seen this stupid episode this morning on the news with Biden saying, that was my team who took care of it. I'm like, are you serious? I didn't know what to do. And then you got figured pothead Harris standing right next to him. It's like, hello, just go away, stop wasting people's time. And we all know that at the same time, who's to say, Jeff, that any of these hostages are even alive still because of everything they've gone through? And the whole thing should be all but none. Don't give us 38. Give them all back the way they're supposed to be, like Donald Trump said. Because, Jeff, I don't trust it. I don't trust what's going on. And I heard it from Benjamin Netanyahu that they're reneging on everything already. And I hear that on the news out of his mouth. And it's like, you can't trust any of it going on. And like I say, 1,000 of terrorists being given back. Gaza's Israel's property, Jeff, not to Hamas or anybody. That's Israel property that was given to them by God, Jeff, back in the Old Testament days.
Dave, would you, I'm just curious, if you were president, I'm just going to make as an example, would you ever do a deal with Al-Qaeda or with ISIS or with Hezbollah? I can name, all these terrorist groups and actually trust them to fulfill what they say they're going to do. Because honestly, I don't want to prejudge it for you, but I wouldn't trust them as far as I can throw them. Why would I do a deal with Al-Qaeda? Why would I deal with ISIS? So everyone's saying, well, Israel has a deal with Hamas. I'm like, it's not worth the paper it's written on. Am I wrong, Dave?
Jeff, I want to make a deal with none of them. after what we've seen go on since 9/11, and I remember that very well because I was watching it right on TV when it happened, Jeff. I wouldn't make a deal with nobody. Either give up or shut up or take it on what's coming towards you. Because we both know Uncle Donald's not playing. Uncle Donald's going to send, there you go, have fun doing it. He's going to let it ride. He's going to let it ride all the way over there, Jeff, and he'll, like you're saying, he'll bomb them right off the map. They'll be gone. We'll never hear from them again.
Dave, thank you very much for that call. Look, there's no question. The whole world can sense it, can feel it. I can feel it. I don't know if you can. Big Daddy is coming back. You know, that's what Trump is. He's Big Daddy. You know, the lion is coming back. Big Daddy is coming home. You know, and he's going to clean house. 617-266-6868. Okay, this is a very, very interesting text from 603. And this person gives Biden an A+. Biden gives himself an A+. But this person is a Trump supporter, okay, and a big supporter of Kuhner country. I know him. He says, Jeff, from a certain angle, I disagree with you. He's not an F. He's an A+. Jeff, let me apply this angle to Biden's grade. And I've made the same point to you one other time. How many people, both here domestically and worldwide, have lost their lives as a direct result of the stolen 2020 election? I'm talking about people who all bore witness to that fateful night, having no idea that at some point in the following 4 years, they themselves would fall victim to the decisions and policies of this fraudulent and illegitimate administration and pay for it with their very lives. The numbers are almost incalculable. So if Biden's true legacy is nothing but ruin, death, and destruction, then I'd have to give him an A+. Now, let me ask all of you. We're judging him by the normal metrics, right? The normal standards of judging a president. We're assuming the president is trying to do his best for his administration and for the country. You know, whether philosophically, you may disagree, politically, whatever. But you say, well, no, there's a good faith effort. Whatever. According to their worldview, they're trying to do the best they can to advance America and the success of their administration. But what if it wasn't that? They stole the election. They ushered in COVID and the lockdowns to steal the election. But the goal was exactly what happened. His Chinese paymasters, and the Chinese do own them, lock, stock, and barrel, their orders were burn America to the ground. Burn it all down. Now, if you look at it from that point of view, first of all, I'm going to ask you two questions, and I'd love to get your take. If your mission, now think of yourself as an enemy. It's hard, but think of it. You're a traitor. You're bought and paid for. You're working now for the communist Chinese, for our mortal enemy. And you're now the Manchurian candidate. They stole the election. You're now the White House. You're the president. You're in the White House. If your mission was to destroy this country, to burn it to the ground, what would you have done any different than Joe Biden? Wouldn't you have done everything he did, almost in the sequence that he did, starting with the border? Just open it up and literally tell the world, come on down. It won't be a crime. No one's illegal anymore. Come on down. Bienvenido. From that point of view, he's an A-. He's an A+. Now, the second point, if his mission and his goal was to destroy, or as 603 put it, ruin, death, and destruction, in a sense, in that way, he was even more successful than Obama. You know, everyone said Biden's this is Obama's third term. Biden's term is really Obama's third term. And this is Obama unleashed, unfettered, unchained. This is Obama's destruction. This is his fundamental transformation. So in that sense, for Biden and those who backed him, mission accomplished. Am I wrong? 617. In other words, he's not an F. He's an A++++. Agree, disagree. Mr. Garcia in New Jersey. Thanks for holding, Mr. Garcia, and welcome.
Hey, listen, my prayer going, you and your family.
Thank you.
Listen, God bless you. Listen, I want to ask you a question. If Biden was a great president, Kamala win, right? Automatic. Let me ask you another question. Ronald Reagan gave George Bush president because Ronald Reagan was famous. Nobody liked Bush. Nobody liked him. He won big because Ronald Reagan was a great president. How dare Biden say he was a great president? Kamala, her Kamala lost. Ronald Reagan Bush destroyed California because he was bad president. California never came back. Bush destroyed California. Automatic never came back as a Republican Party. California was red because Ronald Reagan was a great president. And let me tell you, I'm very angry. Biden saying he was a great president. He was not.
Oh, he's a liar. Biden's a liar on top of everything else. No, Mr. Garcia, look, I got to say, you are not 100%, as I like to say. You're 1,000% correct. I remember, look, I grew up in the 1980s. I remember the 80s. California was Reagan country. And he didn't just win two big national landslides. He won California. My God, he won it huge. And the last time a Republican presidential candidate won California, you're right, was his vice president, who then got the nomination in 1988, George Herbert Walker Bush. He lost it in 1992 to Clinton, and the Republicans have never gotten it back. Because you're right, Bush was such a horrible president that he ran the country, but especially California, into the ground. You're completely right. And Reagan, this is what I mean. Reagan, as you rightly say, Mr. Garcia, was such a successful president. That's the reason why Walker Bush, Bush 41 won. Nobody liked him. He had no personality, no charisma. He really didn't stand for much. He was basically an empty suit. But he was Reagan's number two. Reagan said, win one for the Gipper. And they said, you know what? Things are so good right now. If Bush will just keep things the same, let's vote for him. So if Biden was this immensely successful president, a la Ronald Reagan, Kamala would have won in a landslide. Kamala would have won the way George Herbert Walker Bush, Bush 41 won in 88. So again, it just belies the lies, the BS, the hypocrisy. He can't stop lying. Look, when I look at Joe Biden, the emperor has no clothes. He's demented. He's a shell. He's a failure. He's a loser. The country has rejected him. The country has rejected his presidency. And the media now are still trying to prop him up. It's pathetic. So, he can say he's great till the cows come home. The fact of the matter is, if he had even a half-decent presidency, Donald Trump would not be being inaugurated in 4 days. Trump's victory is the verdict on Biden and the Biden years. It was a disaster. Mr. Garcia, thank you very much for that call. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, we're up against a hard break, but I want to take more calls, obviously. I want to ask you, double-barreled question. What do you think should be Joe Biden's legacy? How will he be remembered? How should he be remembered? And what grade would you give him? He gives himself an A+. I give him an F. 920 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Joe Biden, farewell to the nation. Foreign policy farewell, domestic policy farewell, a letter farewell, even warning that when Trump comes into power, yes, democracy will come to an end. Now there's an ultra-wealthy oligarchy, misinformation, disinformatio, as the Russians say, is now going to run wild, he says, on social media. Very dark speech he delivered to the nation last night. He says he did a phenomenal job. Peace abroad, prosperity at home, a massive increase, according to him, in America's economic power, diplomatic power, moral power, military power, on every front. He is the FDR, the Franklin Roosevelt of the 21st century. I say he's the biggest loser to have ever occupied the White House. What say you? Gina in West Roxbury. Thanks for holding, Gina, and welcome.
Jeff. Hello?
Hi, Gina. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, it's Dr. Gina.
Dr. Gina. How are you? Mike, how come you didn't put doctor in front of her name? She's the resident psychiatrist of Kuhner Country. Show a little respect, Mike, for God's sake. Sorry about that, Dr. Gina. Go right ahead.
What I asked is, do we think that Biden believes what he says? And I would say, in part, he does. One of the things you're seeing is an interaction between his neurological condition, which is probably dementia, with something else, an interaction with his personality disorder, which is a malignant narcissist. And a malignant narcissist is a narcissistic personality with antisocial personality. And because he's demented, his executive function of his brain is diminishing, so he doesn't regulate his behavior very well, what he says and what he does. So what's blurting out more is his underlying personality, his disregard for people. He's obsessed with power. He'll do anything to get it. He uses everyone. He takes personal slights at the slightest thing and becomes incredibly enraged. He lashes out at the media. He lashes out at Trump. He holds grudges. He takes revenge, as in warfare. He's pissed off at his attorney general because he didn't work hard enough to take Trump down. He takes pleasure in others' suffering. If you've ever seen him when he's asked a question that he doesn't like, or he feels like you're an idiot and I'm so smart, he has a little surly smile on, like he's just take it in. I'm so wonderful and you're so stupid. And he uses people in a horrible way. Look at how he used his daughter, the showers, when she was a kid. Look at how he uses Hunter. He has terrible contempt for Hunter. The only reason he's protecting him is because he's protecting himself. He has no empathy for people. He's concerned with him. He's the king of his own world and expects everybody else to view him that way. And if you don't, he takes it out on you. When the kids were in the car accident with his wife who died and his daughter who died, do you know that when he was sworn in office, it was at the hospital where his two boys were, who were in horrible, horrible shape? He made sure that the staff dressed them up in their civilian clothes because he didn't want pictures of the children in the condition they were in to taint his look as he was accepting the office of the Senate. Can you imagine? So I think his legacy will be neurologists and people in the mental health field are going to have a field day doing kind of a forensic investigation into this man's life. He has been screwed up his whole life and has used everyone in his wake and left dead bodies behind, literally, figuratively. But so what you saw last night was just he's telling everybody how wonderful he is because that's always the way he's been. When he was growing up, he had such glorious and grandiose notions about himself. Kids hated to be with him. When he'd come out with his baseball to play baseball, they'd all just leave because he just was so arrogant and obnoxious. But now it's just incredibly out of control. And I think he has become whoever's running the show, which is probably Obama and some of the other globalists, Biden has become their useful idiot. They push him out when they want him to take the fall for their behavior. And last night was a good example of it.
Dr. Gina, I want to play a quick cut, and I want to get your psychiatric evaluation of him. This is Biden. He is announcing, this is not the farewell address. This is the middle of the day. They think they have a big deal on the Israel-Hamas ceasefire. And someone says, who should get the credit, you or Trump? Roll cut 5, Mike.
Thank you.
Brooks, credit for this, Mr. President, you or Trump?
Is that a joke? Oh, thank you.
We've got less than a minute, Dr. Gina. Why can't he share credit? What is that all about?
Of the universe. He's not sharing any credit with anybody. And when he responded, I remember his look. When he turned around and he said, is that a joke? He had a smirk. And he has this way of squinting. It's like, I gotcha. I'm not answering that.
Well, Dr. Gina, as always, dynamite stuff. Thank you very, very much for that call. So there you heard it. Dr. Gina is giving us a psychological/psychiatric profile of Joey, saying, yes, he's got serious dementia, no question, but he's a malignant narcissist. And this man's hubris, his pride, his arrogance knows no bounds. Agree, disagree. Is Biden one of the most horrible people to ever occupy the White House? 9:32 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, cleaning up the liberal bull. Okay, many of you are texting the Kuhner Man. Again, you can text the Kuhner Man 70470, 70470. And they're saying, Jeff, if you were to describe Biden or his presidency, okay, either the man or, the fact, his 4 years in office, and you could only use one word, what would that word be? I think Dr. Gina would say narcissist. Again, it's one word. I mean, people want a 2, 3, a sentence, a paragraph, but if you could only use one word, I think Dr. Gina, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but from her description of him or evaluation of him, she'd say narcissist. Okay, obviously malignant. If she can add more, she'd add more. Destruction. That's the only, to me, the one word that I think sums up him and his 4 years in power. Destruction. Both here and abroad. But that's me. I want to hear from you. Rob in Maine. Thanks for holding, Rob, and welcome. Hello, Rob. All right, let's see if we can reconnect with Rob. Who do you want to go to next, Mike? Rich in Natick. Thanks for holding, Rich, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Geez, only one word, huh? I have many, but I'll just throw a couple out. Liar, thief, and on the grading, I have to outdo the F minus. I'm going down one more letter to G, and that's another one word. Goodbye.
Rich, would you agree that he's the worst president we ever had? Worse than Obama? I mean, just to throw a name out there. Is he the worst? Is Biden we know Obama was pulling his strings. We get that. But if you're just to grade his 4 years in power versus Obama's 8 years, right? 2009 to 2017. Who do you think ultimately did more damage to the country and to the world? The dear leader or Dementia Joe?
Quote Obama, but if you want something screwed up, leave it to Joe. and I said that nicely. Yeah. Yeah. Joe Biden wins the award for worst president ever. No, hands down. I mean, the guy doesn't even know what year it is. When you play that clip when he said that he put that the ceasefire talk started in May. He said May of this year. He doesn't even know what year it is. You know, I mean, and now you really believe his mental decline is just an accumulation of all the lies and all the cheating. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing, I believe, and he's been more exposed more than ever since he became president. And it's just been, and you know, that stress can cause, you know, have side effects, and I believe that part of his, you know, fast decline. You know what it reminds me of, Jeff? The guy that running a marathon and he collapses at the last mile and he keeps trying to get up and he runs another 50 feet and collapses again, and the people come out and pick him up and try to push him forward. That's like his presidency.
Oh, I agree. And that's how it feels like now. It's just like, it's almost painful now, really. It's like, come on. Like, let's just get this thing over with. I mean, you're right. You know, almost every second, every minute, like just push them. Come on, Joey, go into that nursing home now. Come on, Joey. Rich, thank you very much for that call. Okay, the lines just dropped all of a sudden. I have no idea why. We had full lines. The lines have completely dropped. So, if you want to call, believe me, now's the time to do it. 617-266-6868. Everything is on the table. Let me ask you a double-barreled question. What grade would you give Joe Biden's 4 years in office, and why? And Biden says that he was a highly successful, in fact, will go down in history as a great president. He says, give me a couple of years when my infrastructure projects kick in, when, you know, my leadership and so many other areas, once we have proper time to assess everything, he will go down as one of the greatest presidents we ever had. Do you agree? I think the man is a disaster, but that's me. Andy in Milford. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Jeff, how you doing? Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure, Andy.
First off, the one word I would use to describe Joe Biden is traitor.
Oh, I like that.
And here's the irony about Joe Biden, Jeff, and I actually talked about this on air with Sandy back in the spring or summer during a time she was sitting in for you. The irony is, if Joe Biden came into office and just left all the Trump policies on autopilot and did absolutely nothing, just left everything on autopilot and just sat in the Oval Office like a potted plant and just told all his people around him, we're not going to do anything. We'll just tell our people we'll say Bravo Sierra they want to hear, but we're not going to really change anything. The reality is this guy would be looking like Teddy Roosevelt by now. Now,
Andy, I got to tell you, I promise I'll let you finish everything you want to say, Andy. Andy, you're a genius. No, I'm telling you, you're an absolute genius. And, you know, it's funny because I've got interviews lined up. People around the world are, you know, they want, like, Jeff, the inauguration's happening on Monday. Biden did his big farewell speech. So countries all over the world, radio shows are asking me, and that's all I'm doing all afternoon are interviews. And they're going to ask me for my assessment of Biden. And I'm telling you, one of the things I was going to say on every single show, because I think it bears saying to the world, it's a different audience, you know, than an American audience, but it's exactly what you just said, Andy. Had Biden left the border alone, what he inherited from Trump, just leave it alone. The booming economy that he inherited from Trump, there was no crisis. As the Wall Street Journal pointed out, there were 3 consecutive quarters of massive economic growth. We were coming out of the pandemic when Biden was sworn in. 3 straight months of booming economic growth. So, had he just left the economy alone, had he left the border alone, had he left the Middle East alone, had he left Afghanistan alone? Remember, under Trump, we had basically an agreement with the Taliban. Not one American soldier was killed in over a year. In other words, had he left Afghanistan alone, the border alone, the economy alone, the Middle East alone, Andy, you're right. Really. I don't know if he would have won re-election because of his age and his cognitive decline. But people will be saying, my God, he's right up there with Teddy Roosevelt. If he's not a great president, he's a near great president. Andy, I completely agree with you. That's the tragedy of the Biden presidency. He blew himself up and with it the country. Andy, final word to you.
Well, final word is I guess old Joey's plagiarism skills got rusty over the years, because that's all he did all his life is plagiarize other people's work. I guess he didn't do a good job of plagiarizing Trump's.
Had he just stuck with it, you're right. Had he just stayed at Rehoboth Beach for 4 years and put the presidency on autopilot and kept Trump's policies in place, really, we'd be saying, I don't know what to do. He may be senile, but son of a gun. The country's booming. Instead, it's a disaster. Andy, outstanding call. Claire in Newberry, thanks for holding, Claire, and welcome.
My call, Jeff.
My pleasure, Claire.
What I wanted to mention is when you asked the question of who started this, either Obama or Joe, who was the worst president, I would say Obama, because he's the one that really started the ball rolling downhill, and then of course Biden really messed it up. So it really is a tie, I guess, but I would say Obama started it. I don't know if you saw last night the interview with Victor Davis Hanson. I actually love him, and whenever he has a smile on his face in his interviews, I always feel great because you know that he's right on target, and I happen to agree. But last night, I don't know if you saw this, he was laughing. And people, I never saw the reporters laughing so much. Of course, it was on, the conservative side. But it was such a joke last night, the whole speech. And especially when he lowers his voice as if he has something very, very important to say, and he says that he's just so horrible. And then the other thing is when people talk about, because you will get some liberals, of course, who will say that we will see.
Oh, Claire, can you hang on? I'm up against a hard break. I'm going to come right back to you. I want you to finish your second point. The first point, you're dead on. Really, I was laughing at him last night. Biden has now become a joke. 9:49 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. In Western Pennsylvania, our Western PA correspondent on Messenger sent me a picture. He says, Jeff, you want to know what Biden's legacy is? You want to know what it is? So it's a picture, in fact, a Getty image of this massive pile. Now, he said it, I can't say it, so I'm going to clean it up. It is a massive pile of manure. I'm telling you, it's funny. It's a massive pile of crap. Okay? I don't know if it's horse or whatever, cow or whatever, but it's huge. He's like, Jeff, pile of what. That's his legacy, Jeff. Yeah, and Trump's the guy with the shovel. Poor guy. That's his 4 years. Shovel, keep shoveling. That's what Trump's going to have to do. Clean up that mess. Antoinette on Cape Cod, on the Cape. Thanks for holding, Antoinette, and welcome.
Hi, good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Antoinette.
Glad to talk to you again. My condolences for your father.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
My prayers were with you. First, thank you so much for this platform. Every time I call, it's always because I'm compelled, because I know you're going to welcome our voices, and I feel in a small way we get our voice out and maybe make a little change here and there. So I just thank you for that. I wanted to say, how do you describe what word comes to mind with Biden, if I can address that, is Satan, or pure evil, or Satan, if I was really going to point.
I like that. I like that, Antoinette. Evil. I don't even want to say pure. We've got one word. So we got to stick to the rules. Evil, Satan. I love it.
put America on the brink of destruction. I think the most evil thing he did in his administration at this time is that he championed the destruction of families and our children. And I'm always compelled to speak up for children. These are some of the calls I've made to your show, because to move past my comfort level to speak out was compelled on when we talk about children and what he has done to destroy the innocence of children by just confusing them in their male and femaleness, the fundamental truth that kids need stability and structure and things that they know are true no matter what. And to destroy that fundamental issue and confuse them and to purposely target them, the adults, I just want to know where the adults are in the room. You know, teachers that see a boy that picks up a pink crayon and says, "Oh, you think you're a girl?" To confuse them on this. I just want to ask everyone, Jeff, did you ever see the movie by Ben Shapiro, Identity Crisis?
No, I didn't.
If you would watch that, and I encourage everyone to watch it, especially parents whose children are involved in this transgender situation of, again, pure destruction of their psyche, I ask you to watch it. You will see a very poignant and disturbing portrayal of transgender people, adults that have gone through it and they're trying to make their way back. Psychologists, parents who have gone through this, and you see the destruction of what it does to a child and the irreversible damage. It is daunting and chilling. Some of the images are graphic because they do show the mutilation surgery.
Ugh.
It is something, if you watch one, it will compel us to keep the fight open, to fight for our children, because you believe.
Oh, it's pure evil. No, Antoinette, look, great call. Honestly, outstanding call. I completely agree with you. You're destroying the minds, the innocence, the futures of these children. Innocent children. I can't think of anything more evil, really. And you're right. Biden empowered this transgender lunacy that is now wreaking havoc all across the country. And Trump vows to reverse it. And that's, I think, one of the major reasons why he won. Justine in Gardner. Thanks for holding, Justine, and welcome.
How you doing, Jeff?
I'm good. How are you?
Not bad. So, make it quick. So, three-part. I'll give him an incomplete for a grade because his brain's incomplete. And then delusional would be the one word. But him leaving a letter as a historical figure such as George Washington, I think he was a very important president to have. Very important, because the damage he did to the country, thank God we have somebody like Donald Trump. If Donald Trump stayed in office with all the roadblocks he had throughout the time he was in office, we would have been saddled with somebody like Gavin Newsom afterwards. So I don't think that we would have the path to recovery that we have now.
Interesting. And Justin, as you, and I don't know why Mike had Justine on the board, but let that go, Mike. Justin, in many ways, Biden is the antithesis of Washington. He's trying to leave this letter like Washington, and, he's a great president like Washington. The destruction, he's almost like, the anti-American, the anti-Washington. And you're right. Look, if Trump won in 2020, he won, but if he was allowed to stay in power, you're right. We could be facing a Gavin Newsom. Now that Trump is back, we have a chance to really put everything right in our country. And that's why I can't wait for Monday. I think it's going to be one of the most important days of my life. I think it's going to be one of the most important days in the history of our country. And really now, Monday, January 20th, high noon, cannot come fast enough. All right, I got to say to the callers, outstanding job today. You're always an A, but today you were an A+. That's my grade for you. On that note, bye-bye.